After that, everybody was like, "Nah, man, I don't know what the Eagles got going on, but this ain't it." And then we just after that, everything really just went downhill, man. We losing last minute games to Seattle and what was the other one, Cardinals, and man, the season's just at that point, man. It was going through my mind. At that point, I was like, "Yeah, we about to go to the playoffs." I already knew what was up. I was like, "We about to go to the playoffs. It don't really matter who we playing. We just don't got it." Like, welcome to the Down South Philly show. This is your host Dom, and this is also your other host
DP.
DP. All right, man. Look, we coming to you with the first episode of the Down South Philly show, man. We just want to give y'all a little bit about what the channel will be about, who we are, how we became fans, and we also want to just touch on a little bit of what happened. Since it's the our first episode, we want to touch a little bit on what happened last season, like we got into the mindset of how we thinking going forward based on what happened last season. So I'm just gonna start off. Like I said, my name is Dom. Um, I live. Oh, let me get into this. Why the show is also called the Down South Philly Show, because we don't live in Philly. All right, so we named the show Down South Philly because we both live down south and we are Philadelphia fans. Um, I'm originally from South Carolina. I currently live in Georgia. I've been a Philadelphia Eagles fan since I was probably about maybe about 10 years old. I can still remember the first Eagles game I ever saw that made me become a fan. Um, if you've been around or watched football long enough, you remember when the Philadelphia Eagles, McNabb was the quarterback, and they were playing the Bucks in the playoffs. It was the first Eagles game I ever saw. I actually didn't even get to see the whole game. Come in the house, I knew it was playoff time. I wanted to catch the game. So I turned it on. It's Philadelphia against the Bucks, and Philadelphia is getting they might have been getting beat at the time. I'm not sure, but anyway, they ended up losing that game. But I don't know what it was. Something about the way they looked on that field just made me become a fan, even though they lost, and I've been a fan ever since. So I've been an Eagles fan for about how old I was. Like I said, I was about 10 at the time. So shoot, that's about 20 some years. Man, so go ahead, DP. Let them know a little bit about you.
It's your boy DP. Looking forward to creating some great content. So I guess I'm gonna have to go back from being born and raised in the DMV area, and really, my whole family is well, there was the Redskins at that point. Now the Washington Commanders. Um, I just always grew up. I couldn't be a Commanders fan just because our era. We never really seen like the glory days. I think their last Super Bowl was like 90 something. So I never really got to witness winning football from that organization. And at that time I wasn't even really watching football anyway. So even if I would to claim to be a Washington fan, it would only be because my family was. So by the time I really actually didn't get into watching football until I started playing in high school. So I moved to South Carolina in '03 is when I moved to South Carolina. And then I started playing football in the ninth grade, which ended up being, I want to say that's like oh 06, oh 07, some, however it lined up. I don't know the year, but however it lined up with that Super Bowl year where we got TO. That was my first time like really watching football, and I had picked, I also had picked McNabb on Madden, and I was like, damn, it's dope that it's a black quarterback. So all that happened at one time. So I'm playing Madden. I picked them on Madden. I ended up like just rocking with the team there. Then they messed around and got TO that season, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl that year. So all that
Yeah.
combined made me a Philly fan as we know it, and I've been rocking with them ever since. And it's actually been kind of easy to be a Philly fan from that point forward, just because
Mhm.
we ain't really had too many downtimes. Of course,
Mhm.
you got your seasons where like, or maybe a season or two where you kind of fall off and not make the playoffs. But for the
Right.
most part, as a Philly fan, like I really don't have a whole lot to complain about because
Mhm.
nobody's team, unless you a Patriots fan and now the Chiefs, your team ain't winning the Super Bowl like that anyway.
Exactly. Nah, I agree. I don't think I ever really heard your whole like story about how you became a Philly
Nah, we
fan,
ain't
but
never we ain't never talked about it.
yeah, like I said, saying I feel the same way. Like even me becoming a fan, like when I became a fan, um, with them losing that game, like even then they was going to. That was starting them Andy Reid taking them to the NFC Championship
Hmm.
every year and stuff like that. So, um, it, it was like you said, it's been easy to be an Eagles fan. Like even if we haven't won a Super Bowl, like you said, nobody else is winning the Super Bowl every year unless you was just like Tom Brady and the Patriots. For the most part,
Hmm.
we almost every year, every other year, we in the playoffs, we in the hunt. Like we ain't never really had a long stretch of bad years like some other teams in the division.
Hmm.
But
And in the
it's just
NFL period.
NFL period. Yeah, straight up. But look, man, we want to go ahead and get into we want to get into last season, man. So I guess we could kind of start on the whole season. So before we get into the elephant in the room, with what happened at the end of last season, we can get into the beginning of the season. Like, what was your expectations like going into that season? Because we at this point we coming off just losing the Super Bowl that we dang near really coulda shoulda won. So what was your expectations going into the season?
So going into the season, first of all, I want to start off by saying I was on cloud nine because man, Hurts. Even though we lost that Super Bowl, Hurts just he played his ass off, and if it wasn't, it came down to one or two plays, which is what you want. I mean, obviously you want your team to win, but they did everything. The Eagles did everything in that game except win it. And, I really didn't have no complaints. And on top of that, like Hurts balled out and he proved that he should be the guy going forward. So coming into the season, I had high hopes. I kind of, just like a lot of Philly fans, I kind of downplayed like our losses. Obviously, we lost the offensive and defensive coordinator. Both of them got head coaching jobs. Losing the linebacking core for the most part. That I downplayed that, and then we just not having enough pieces. But I think I was just probably on the Super Bowl high. Uh, but really going into the season, I had high hopes for the season. I figured like nothing less than an NFC championship. Not
Right,
necessarily a Super Bowl, but I at least felt like an NFC championship because if you remember the reports going into the 23 season, like they was saying that Hurts was looking the best. He was having like the best offseason ever out of any Philadelphia quarterback they'd never seen. And you know how Philly media is. So
right,
I kind of bought into that too. And just knowing the chemistry that they had on offense, it seemed like we didn't really lose that much. I didn't feel like
right,
losing Sanders was going to be that much. Our offensive
right.
line is what it is. And of course, we still had AJ, Goddard, and Smitty. Um, Wide receiver three was a question mark. But for the most part, I felt like we at least had enough offensively to carry the defense. So yeah, I had high hopes going into it. What about you?
Yeah. I would say for me, I kind of had high hopes too. I don't think it probably was at. I can't say it was as high as yours, but I can't say it was like necessarily lower either. But at the same time, I kind of was thinking about because my mindset was I'm thinking about the year we came off winning. I'm also thinking about the year we came off winning the Super Bowl with Doug, and I'm thinking about like all the changes that we made. All right, did they learn from how they hired the coordinators and stuff from that season. For whatever reason, that was in my mind a little bit. I knew we didn't, like you said, we didn't change that much on offense. I was concerned about the linebackers on defense because I thought highly of T.J. Edwards. I didn't want to let T.J. Edwards go. Um, that was a big blow to me. I'm a huge Kaiser White fan. I was mad we let him go. I was thinking like we got to keep one of these guys. Um, I didn't know what to expect from the Kobe Dean, but I knew he could handle it. But at the same time, it's like this is his first time starting. Whatever he gonna be,
Mm-hmm.
he not gonna be in his first year starting. So I wasn't necessarily down on him. I'm actually high on the Kobe Dean, but because you got to give players time to develop and stuff like that. But I knew like, man, we need something. We need something back there. And I knew when we got Kaiser White, I was like, all right, this is gonna be a guy. And I knew what TJ Edwards was. I knew what he had grew to be. So I was a little bit concerned about the linebackers a little bit. Um, Secondary, I wasn't necessarily concerned about the secondary that much. I knew we still had Bradbury. I knew we still had Slay. I love Reed Blankenship. Who else did we have back there? So the other spot that we ended up having back there, I didn't know what that was going to be or whatever. But for the most part, I'm thinking on defense. I'm like, man, if anything, the offense, can maybe make up a little bit for the defense. But
Mm-hmm.
my expectations going into the season, I'm thinking we going to the playoffs. I'm not necessarily. I can't remember what my prediction was on how many games we could win, but I think I was anywhere between 9 and 11 games or something like that. Minimum line 9 to 11 games. Anything above that would have been, you know, just icing on the cake. Um, but yeah, I think a little bit of my concern was the coordinators and stuff like that. I didn't know what to expect from them. Like I said, I was kind of basing it off of what I had seen previously or whatever. But I didn't see the season going the way that it ended up going. So, but still, before we get into that, like when we started winning those first few games, like my mindset was, look, if we can come out and win about 4 games in a row and use those 4 games to not only win, but we learning in the process. Like
Mm-hmm.
if nobody don't beat us in about these first 4 games, I'm thinking like, man, we're gonna be unstoppable because even in our mistakes, we won the game. So we can use these first 4 games to clean up our mistakes, build our chemistry. We're gonna be rolling, which we kind of was rolling, but it wasn't how you expected to look. So if you look at the season, how the season ended, it was telltale signs from the beginning. So how did you feel the first maybe the first few games? I know we did end up losing to the Jets, but how did you feel probably all the way I would say all the way up until about that Buffalo game? How was you feeling about the season?
I was feeling like, all right, and similar to you, I was glad we were still winning and learning, but in the back of my head, I was like, all right, if it is something that we needed to add or clean up, one, I believe in Howie. Howie was going to bring somebody in by the trade deadline to fix anything that he could. And then I also believe that we could just learn and had a momentum from just playing so many close games. But, it just ended up them first 4 games. It just, even though we was winning, it just didn't look right. And I was like, well, maybe if we can make it to the
The
bye,
bye week?
we
Yeah,
could at least, we can correct it. We can correct it. So
right,
boom, we made it to the bye. Even going into the Jets game, obviously I didn't see us losing that game.
right.
It just didn't look right, and we just felt, both of us felt like we needed time to gel, more so than it being like signs of doom.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a little bit of that. You supposed to be thinking like that when your team ultimately end up like 10-1. Like you in a good place. You
Right,
10-1. Even if you drop a game here or there, you feel like you shouldn't finish the season no less than a 12-win ball club. And our roster, not our roster, our schedule was hard. So that's what everybody kept saying. Every game, every week. All right, we got the hardest roster, we got the hardest schedule in this thing, and they was expecting us to kind of like fall off a cliff after like week
Yeah,
4 or something like that.
yeah.
And we just kept inching it out, and close game after close game, and the whole time I'm thinking like we just got to make it to the bye week, and it ended up not mattering, but that was my thought process like for the beginning, the first half of the season, really.
I think I was because I kind of was thinking that we might lose that Jets game just cause how the season had been going so far. I know the Jets really didn't have much, but the thing about the NFL, man,
Any given Sunday.
anybody could be any given Sunday. Anybody could be anybody, man. Even if you least expect it, especially if you're a team like us. We had never lost to the Jets. We had just come off winning the Super Bowl. We undefeated up until this point. And there was a lot of talk in the media that week for like, this team never lost to the Jets. So I'm thinking like, man, when people get to talking like that, it's like, man, shut up.
It's a wrap.
So it was like one of those situations where like they kept talking about it, kept talking about it. And I did kind of have a feeling like, man, I don't know. I know like once we was in the game and Lane Johnson went down, man, that kind of just like turned the whole game around as well. We dropped a lot of passes that game. Yeah, it just got ugly. But even more something more past that, as the season went on, the defense wasn't looking right, man. We had a lot of injuries. Um, you gotta remember that as well. We did have a lot of injuries on that defense, so a lot of guys wasn't able to gel together. I don't think we had the right defensive coordinator on top of all the pieces that you do have. They not constantly in the lineup, so we don't have time to build chemistry. It was just a lot going wrong, man. A lot going wrong, which is crazy because the previous season is like everything was going right. Nobody really was getting hurt like that, and even if they did, whoever came in to back up was able to hold it down till that person got back or whatever. So
Mhm.
when you coming off a season where like everything went right, and then you go into a season like that where everything just like it was crazy because a lot of stuff was going wrong, but like you said, we were still being able to inch a lot of those games out and win. Um, I know for me, I in the kind of in the back of my head, I was thinking like, man, I don't know. Another thing too is like look at how the schedule was set up. A lot of our games was like, man, it seemed like we kept having like Monday night game, Thursday night game, Sunday night game. It was like a lot of primetime games. We barely had any 1 o'clock games. I think that affected us as well. We had too many like short weeks, a lot of primetime games. So you got to travel. I really do think that affected us a lot as well. And then like over time, they just build up. And I feel like once we got to that Buffalo game, man, it seemed like everybody just like laid it out on the line to win that game. And after that, we have no more left in the tank. Literally, Jordan Davis chasing down Josh Allen. Like to me, that sum up everybody what everybody gave for that whole game, and it's just like after that we had no more left in the tank. Then you got to turn around. If I'm not mistaken, and did we play the 49ers right after that? Was
I
that
can't
that is
remember.
that who we played next?
I can't even remember
Uh,
who we played after that.
man, but I feel like after that everybody it pretty much all the gas was going out of the tank. So now we get up to this part of the season. Where I should bring up the schedule, but I'm thinking we started playing like the 49ers and Seattle and all that, like right after that. Let's get into that 49ers game real quick. How did you feel going into the 49ers game? How did you feel during the game? And, after we ended up losing, how did you feel about that?
Man, going into that game, like with every game, because of the season that we was coming off of, and like just seeing them boys play great ball, I didn't really like. I ain't feel nobody on the schedule. So going into that game, even though we was looking how we was looking, in the back of my mind, I was like, we gonna turn it on at
We're
some
going to pull it
point.
out.
Yeah, and it was a big game. Well, I was expecting not a blowout, but I was expecting us to eventually like get over the hump and win some decisive games, like
Right,
by 10 points or more.
right.
That would have been probably one. I had like a touch. I think I had us winning like by a touchdown or something like that. With that one, but that and going into that game, I was like, yeah. And then on top of that, Debo had been talking so much smack since really since the NFC Championship. So I was like, them boys, they done heard all the chatter. Debo all season been talking. He called Bradbury trash. Um, really the whole team, except for like maybe Fred Warner, kind of mentioned something about us. So it was kind of like it was everything was on the line. Top two teams in the conference. It felt like a playoff atmosphere going into it.
Yeah, thanks.
So I was excited. I was excited about that. Of course, you always in the back of your mind, a little nervous about potentially losing, but not the ass whooping that we ended up getting. Them boys, I think what was more disappointing than losing was just how they lost. Cause
Yeah,
that's when
like they was
like
defeated.
Debo just breaking tackles, going to the house, um, just a whole bunch of missing tackles. I hate that anyway. Like
Right,
that's I think we share that pet peeve when it comes to watching any kind of football is missed tackles. But to see it out of your team when you needed it the most, it just didn't. That game kind of killed me a little bit on the inside because I wanted it. I wanted it too bad. I wanted that
right,
one. Honestly, I wanted to beat them at that time more than I wanted to beat Dallas, just because of how much they was talking.
right,
Obviously, we always want to beat Dallas,
right,
but that going into it, that was my thoughts, and then leaving out of it, I was thinking we could be in trouble.
right. Yeah, I think for me going into that game, and like one thing about me is, man, I'm an Eagles fan, but like I'm gonna keep it real. If I think a team gonna beat us, it is what I think. Because if I wasn't a fan and I gave my opinion on the game, I wouldn't have no bias. So I try to do the same thing, regardless. So that particular game, just how we was looking at the time, knowing the schedule we had just had, whether it was the teams we played or times we played and the way we had to travel, I was like, we probably gonna drop this one. I didn't, but at the same time, I wasn't. I wouldn't have been surprised if we won, because like you said, of all the trash talking. So I was like, I don't know, we might come out there. Matter of fact, if you remember that first quarter, hey, we was on them boys. Like they couldn't even
Mm-hmm.
really move the ball. So I thought it was gonna
Mm-hmm.
be like that the whole game. I was like, oh snap, they just them boys and turned it up. Like they couldn't move the ball, and next thing you know, they figured something out and then got in their bag, and it was over. Like it was like we missing tackles. They everything they wanted to do, it was getting going or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
just the way that it ended up ending, it looked real ugly for us, especially since they what we had just seen, well not just seen, but we had seen a little while ago what they had did to Dallas. So it was like, all right, we go in here and beat these boys, or at least come out in a close game. You know, it ain't gonna be too much people can say. Even if like we in and it was like a 3 point, 7 point game, 6 point game, you know, it would have looked it better. But the way them
Mm-hmm.
boys, after that, everybody was like, nah, man, I don't know what the Eagles got going on, but this ain't it. And then we just after that, everything really just went downhill, man. We losing last minute games to Seattle and what was the other one, Cardinals, and man, the season's just at that point, man. It was going through my mind. At that point, I was like, yeah, we about to go to the playoffs. I already knew what was up. I was like, we about to go to the playoffs. It don't really matter who we playing. We just don't got it. Like it just you could just tell it was like something was there. Like something's missing. Like I don't know what it is. Obviously, they couldn't put their finger on it, so we can't put our finger on like what it was or whatever. Like I think it was just a lot of the me personally, I think it was a lot of coaches. You got a lot of coaches in the wrong place. You got two new coordinators that like never been defensive offensive coordinators. So I feel like you got Nick, the head coach Nick, not being his best at just be. I think he at his best when he can be the head coach. He ain't got to go in here and try to coach the offense up over the coordinator, and then go in here with the defensive coordinator and be a defensive coordinator and a head coach. No, you need to manage the team and manage what's going on and do what you need to do. So I don't think Nick is at his best when he got to um, micromanage everybody or whatever. So I think it was a lot of that. And then we switched defensive coordinators in like the middle of the season. I think we should have just rolled old buddy out. The first defensive coordinator, I can't even think of his name at the time, but we should have just
Decide.
rolled him. Yeah, the side. We should have just rolled the side till the wheels fell off. You ain't making it no better putting a new voice in there that them guys got to listen to. So now they
especially
got to
like Matt
learn.
Patricia.
Yeah, yeah. And then Matt Patricia on that, he should have never even been in the building for real. I didn't like that hire. I'm not really one to like kind of like get on like whenever they do these like little hires or whatever. All right, maybe they know what they're doing, but I really didn't like that one. Excuse me, but I really didn't like that one. Um, I was like, what is this guy gonna be in here doing? What is Matt Patricia like gonna be doing? You already know him and Slade don't get along. Everybody know their history. If you Slade came out and said what he said about Matt Patricia and what their relationship was like, it was to me it was no reason to bring that guy into the building. If
Mm-hmm.
you got to bring that guy into the building to help your defensive coordinator, you got the wrong defensive coordinator because they was like he was gonna be helping on the defense or whatever. Nah, you just need to get another defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So and then we go into the to the Bucks game, playoff game. I'm already looking at that as like, man, I know we had beat the Bucks earlier in the season, but at this point, I already know what it is, and I think that's AJ didn't play that game. I was like, man, there's probably no way we making it out of this game alive. And,
Mm-hmm.
and looking back on it, we probably got the easiest team that was in the playoffs because Green Bay, oh man, Detroit, everybody was looking crazy. We probably we might have did better probably playing Dallas
Yeah,
than the Bucks since it was a divisional rival. But I don't know, man. At this point, I kind of already seen the writing on the wall. Um, but if you want to go ahead and say how you felt about those last few games going into that playoff games, what was you thinking?
I'm thinking the last few games, like if we can string it, because if you remember, even though we had started to get on like a little losing streak, we still was in contention for the number one seed. And if things fell a certain way, we could possibly had got home field. Because it wasn't like San Francisco. They beat us, but they wasn't that far ahead of us because I think they went through a stretch of like maybe a month where they was losing too, but
Yeah.
that was kind of in the middle of the season or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. I can't. It was either the beginning or the middle of the season. Either way, they didn't
That
do
was kind
enough
of
to.
like I think the beginning going into the middle of the season,
Yeah,
somewhere around in there. Yep.
but they didn't count. They did enough to let us like one get a lead on them with going 10-1, and then
Mm-hmm.
two they didn't really. It really wasn't much space between us, so I was kind of just had hope, still had hope that we could, win one or two games and boom, we get either the one seed. I didn't want the two seed. I wanted either the one seed or the wild card. That
Right.
was my
Right.
two things that I wanted, and it just seemed like with everything that was going wrong, defense was just looking how they was looking. That was just all year. That At that point, I came to terms with the fact that it wasn't nothing that was gonna get fixed because we passed the trade deadline at that point. We picked up Buyer at that point. We
We had
passed the
got Shaq
buy.
Leonard.
We had got Shaq Leonard, so it's just like
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is enough for us to, if we just run the ball. Like my whole thought process at that time was going back to Hurts' first full year as a starter, where we leaned on the run and just passed when we
Mm-hmm.
absolutely had to. I
Mm-hmm.
still feel like if we would have had that formula, um, we would have been straight.
Yeah, I agree. I knew they wasn't gonna do it, no. So that's why I was like, man, the writing on the wall, because it's it's rare that we just because we see it all the time with Philly. We talk about it all the time, like, man, they need to run the ball more. And I also like you were saying earlier about going into the bye week. I feel like that was the first time that we went into a bye week since we had Nick. I feel like that was the first time we went into the bye week with Nick, and then came out, and it wasn't like a major adjustment or something that or like a great change there because like the first year, like you said, when we had Hurts or whatever, we came out of the bye week, we was running the ball. And then of course the Super Bowl season we went into the bye week. It wasn't that much we really had to change, but we came out I think when we went into the bye week, the Super Bowl season, we came out and kind of like added a lot of plays off of plays we was already running. Um, but everything was pretty much writing on the wall to me, man. After that bye week, I didn't see much change. Everything was still falling apart, and I didn't see for me, is the writing was on the wall already. So, what do you feel was the collapse of the? What do you feel like was ultimately like the collapse of the season? What do you feel like it was? The coaches, the players, a combination of both. Why do you feel like it ended up going the way that it went?
I feel like ultimately it was just we ended up just not being the team that we thought we was gonna be going into the season. Ultimately, the coordinators, the lack of depth as DB, because
Hmm.
losing CJ proved to be detrimental. The loss of
Hmm.
TJ and Kajir seemed to be detrimental. It seemed like
Hmm.
everything that everything that we had questions about for the most part didn't pan out.
Read his head.
And
Hmm.
you know, um, the media they tried to say we fell off after the 10-1, but really it was just more of the same. We played. It might have just looked worse on the back end because them boys just wasn't in it. But I mean, at that point, they saw the writing on the wall too. But I think the first half of the
Hmm.
only difference between the first half of the season and the second half of the season was we just wasn't getting stuff, just wasn't going our way no more. Like it was games in there where if a foot was in versus out, that was the difference between a completion and incompletion. So, football stuff. We just had luck on our side in the first half of the season, and the way we was winning just wasn't sustainable at the end of the day, and
Right.
it came back to bite us. And you can't do a whole season of close games like that. At some point, you're gonna burn out, and that's what happened with us. We burned out.
People don't realize how much luck is a huge part of winning in sports in general. You got to be great, and you need a lot of bit of luck. Even on top of that greatness, I think having great coaches is underrated, because even like if you look back at the year before we went to the Super Bowl season, everybody was like, man, anybody can coach, talented, whatever, whatever. No, man. Those coaches matter, man. You can have a great team. If you got horrible coaches, I don't care who on it. A lot of people try to say that all the time. Hey, with that team, anybody, because they do it all the time. Look at the run Golden State was having. A lot of people was like, man, anybody could have coached Golden State. No, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. Same thing with San Fran. With that same exact team San Fran got, you put the wrong coach on there. They not winning how they winning right now. But I also want to get into what was your thoughts going into the season over? What was your thoughts going into the bye week? What was you thinking about what we needed to probably do from that point forward, as far as like who needed to be fired, players that maybe needed to let go, or positions that needed to be looked at? What was your thoughts?
Shoot, going into the off season at this point, obviously it was a disappointing loss in the first round. Was that the first round? Yeah,
Yeah,
first round.
wild card game.
Yeah, losing in the wild card game. Obviously, nobody want to do that, especially coming off the season that we came off of previous to that. I'm thinking, obviously, we need a new defensive coordinator. We need a new offensive coordinator. Um, Definitely need to fix the back end. We needed some linebackers. Um, I think safety was a real big question mark. At this point, everybody turned on Bradbury. So I'm thinking we at least, from my perspective, obviously we still had him under contract, but I was thinking that we was gonna make some moves at cornerback. I was thinking we was gonna make some moves at safety. Pretty much everything that we did um, was kind of spot on from a defensive standpoint. We needed to really clean house. I wasn't sure if Fletch was gonna stay or not. Well, I think at this point he had pretty much said that was his last year, so we already knew at this point Fletch we was losing Fletch, which mean that the young pucks was gonna have to step up. Um, shit, I don't want to throw the whole defense away at that point, and let's start from scratch. The only thing
Start
that I
from
felt
scratch.
like we could hang our hat on was the fact that we still had Hurts, we still was coming back to a similar type of offense. I did want to know what we was gonna do at running back because I wanted to keep Swift because he showed me enough.
Right,
Young guy, stayed healthy the whole season, got off when he got his chances. It
right,
just seemed like we just didn't use him enough. He was underutilized in the
right,
offense, and he kind of we kind of got tricked because going into this season, they were showing us throwing the ball to the running back, check
man,
downs. It just seemed like he was going to be a bigger part of the offense than he ended
right,
up being.
right.
Um,
Do you think that's more of the play calling, like how we call the plays, or do you think that's Hurts not just like throwing to the running back?
I think it was play calling because even when it wasn't a situation to throw to the running back, I felt like when it was blitz situations, obvious blitz situations, we didn't do no checking down, no hot routes. We were just getting killed, especially in the blitz, and it was like we became so predictable. And
Yeah,
when we got in them passing situations, it just seemed like what was killing me was them screens and them quarterback draws, man. We was every time we ran them plays, it was just taking a little piece out of me because if we could see it, we
right.
know that the professionals knew it
We
was
at
coming.
we at
So
home, like man, they about to run
yeah,
and draw.
so that I think that was probably the most outside of the defense looking how they was looking, um, just being predictable on the offensive side of the ball. I think everybody has something to blame. I don't think we could just blame one side of the ball. We can't
Yeah,
blame one
or one person.
one
Yeah,
person. It just seemed like you
yeah, it was
say,
everybody.
everything that could go wrong did go wrong,
Right,
and that's what you get. Even with everything going wrong, we were still able to win 11 games, which shows you the talent that was still on the team. It just
right.
we was lacking too much to make an actual push, even if we somehow would have made it past the Bucks, we probably would have got put out the second round anyway.
Obliterated. Let's keep it a buck. We would have got obliterated. But nah, man, did you see what Green Bay did to Dallas? Oh man, that could
Yeah,
have been
man.
us. I was so glad we didn't get to play Green Bay. I was like,
We
boy, they would have mollywopped us.
Yeah, I just the only
Man,
reason that's the only reason why I wanted to win was so I could enjoy their loss. Like
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too.
that loss was so bad, but
We
in the
couldn't
back of
even
my
enjoy it
mind,
like that
I was like, I can't even really enjoy it like I want to. But
because we got
yeah,
our boots smoked.
man, doing it. The only thing that I can hang my hat on was we didn't lose to the seventh seed. They the first team in history to lose to the seventh seed. So
Yeah, that
I
is
mean,
right.
a ass whooping is a ass whooping, but that was my little moral victory was the fact that
Yeah,
they lost to a lower seed, and like it was so much going into that game from a standpoint of them boys was undefeated at home. They was scoring like
hmm
1,000 points in that stadium.
right,
So it was just a lot of. It was a lot. It was a lot for them to look forward to in that game with
man.
Green Bay being young.
Yep.
All the
I thought the writing
momentum
was on the wall.
Yeah, all the momentum was on Dallas' side to not only win the game, but to like destroy the Packers, and it couldn't have
Hmm
been farther from the truth. And that kind of made it was a blessing and a curse for us because, like, of course, we always want Dallas to lose by 70,
Yeah.
but it was like, man, at least they on the
Yeah.
couch with us. We just made space. Hold on,
Yeah.
they lost first, didn't they? I
I
can't.
think they did. I think they
Yeah,
lost first.
yeah, they lost first. So I mean, going into the game.
I think we might have played like the next day.
I can't remember. I can't remember
I,
how exactly it played out,
if
but
I'm not mistaken, they played the day before us, and then because I think I briefly remember like enjoying that because I was like, I know we're gonna lose tomorrow, so I'm about to talk junk for a whole 24.
oh man, them
And so
boys
then the
put on
next day we
stank.
end up losing. We end up losing to the Bucks when Smitty got off. So that's one thing that was kind of like a great highlight of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see. I mean, we already know. If you're a real Eagles fan, you already know what. You already know Devontae Smith. If he was a number one receiver and dang near any team, he'll put up way bigger numbers. And then he putting up big numbers with the team that he owned. Like man, putting up
Mm-hmm.
1,000 yards. So if he was like a number, just like a true number one on the team, oh man, this man the best route runner, hands for days. He didn't really drop too much. The most I really ever seen him drop was that Jets game. Like he dropped a couple, key passes in that Jets game. But other than that, man, that man a guarantee. He'll walk and catch, man. But I know, like, for me, I just felt like the collapse of the season was, like you said, a combination of everything. The coaches, the players, like a lot of stuff just wasn't going our way. And and a lot of people was trying to what do you make of people trying to because like once you start losing games, people try to nitpick on anything. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you take of like because a lot like when we start losing those games, now mind you, everything that Hurts was doing this season while towards the end when we started losing, Ben was doing it when we was in the Super Bowl season. And when we win in games, he go sit on the bench by himself. He probably ain't even showing no emotion. He go put his coat on, sit on the bench, or if it was warm out, he just go sit on the bench or whatever. He wasn't really doing too much rah rah stuff, celebrating or whatever. He might say a little something here and there, mostly at the end of the game. But what do you make of a lot of people was trying to say that man, Hurts ain't he's sitting on the bench by himself or he ain't doing this and that with the team. They trying to make it a big deal about him and AJ. If you remember that Washington game, they were trying to make a big deal about they were saying him and AJ got into it on the sideline. So what do you make of that stuff like that? What they were saying about Hurts?
Man, it was all just a microcosm of losing. When you losing, everything is a story. The same
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I don't feel
Magnified.
like it was nothing different, like between the beginning of the year and the end of the year, other than our luck running out. Like it just you can't win that way a whole season. And
Right.
not out. A part of me was just being naive, being a fan, and looking optimistically at what
Right.
could happen, sprinkled in with a little bit of magic. But
Right.
I just think it was just a whole lot of overblown stuff just because we was losing. Um, Same stuff would
I
have been
agree.
overlooked if we'd have
We
won
won.
them games.
Yep.
Obviously, looking at it now, going into the 24th season, we done paid both our wide receivers. So obviously it wasn't no fracture there. It just was, when you losing, everybody feeling some kind of way. Everybody ready to win. They could have been feeling some kind of way about the play calls, but ultimately it was just the losing. I think that you know, and being in Philly can't be easy losing like that. Living in Philly, having to hear the fans everywhere you go. So on the internet, providing pressure. I think it was just a luck running out, losing, and them looking at every little thing as a big deal. So it was just a lot of overblown stuff about us losing.
I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We pretty much talked about, last season, how we felt about it, how we was thinking during the season. So I think that's about it. You got anything else you want to add on to that?
And this was therapeutic. I had to get this off my chest because I last year was frustrating, bro. Especially after seeing what we could have been, seeing some of the things that obviously having 2020 hindsight, it was just a
Right.
frustrating year for the most part. And glad it's over. I feel like Nick Nick should have learned from that season. Hurt should have learned from that season. Um,
Everybody
Got to
that's
look.
still on the roster for real.
Yeah, so I mean,
The whole organization talked about him.
it's a lot to be optimistic about. Obviously, we made some key additions that we're gonna talk about in later episodes, but really this was just a vent session for me because I ain't really want to talk about it, and y'all gonna learn during the season. I handle losses much differently than Dom. You might not even see me that week. Very little. It's gonna be a different. It's two different people. When obviously don't nobody like to win, but the food don't taste the same. You
He
know.
mean don't nobody like to lose is what he meant to say. You said don't nobody like to win.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Don't nobody like to lose, but it just hurt, and it feel like I'm the only. I take I take Eagles losses hard, so um, yeah, that's all. This was therapeutic for me.
I don't know if it mattered, but your screen froze on my side.
I think the camera died. But can you hear me?
Yeah,
Boom. First episode activity.
yeah.
For, oh snap! I forgot. We got sound effects.
Oh hell.
One
That
time.
shit gonna come in. That shit'll come in clutch if we ever be able to goddamn stream during the game.
Man. On. But yeah, this was a vent session for me. I'm glad that I was able to get that off my chest, and I'm a bury this season along with right next to Chip Kelly season, and move on.
Yeah, that's it.
Shoot, this was a dope episode number 1. It was good to kind of get that off my chest and also kind of introduce ourselves to the platform, and you can expect us to tell them what they can expect from us from a content
Ye-
standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know if for as far as like content, I don't know if because this is our first episode, so I mean, I don't know how long the episodes will be. It just depends on what we're talking about. As we get more into the actual events of the season, we'll be talking more about whatever is going on at that time. So the episodes will probably be way shorter. Um, but as right now, it's the off season, man. We got to talk about what we got to talk about. It's the first episode, so we talked about last season. But as far as what you can expect from the channel, you can just expect for us to talk about what's going on, current events, whatever's going on in that moment, or whatever our thoughts are, our opinions, things of that nature. Just some, and we plan to get better, man. This is the first episode, as you can see. This looks like a first episode.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
on
but
purpose.
yeah, so you can expect the channel to get better going forward, man. We plan to get that daily. I ain't gonna say daily content, but whenever we can get on and get. You may see one of us, you may see both of us, but whenever we can get on and share our thoughts on anything that's going on, you'll see one of us, for sure.
And it's always gonna be the raw uncut. It
Oh yeah,
probably it's probably gonna end up being different from your favorites, just because it seemed like the media, and certain other people. And we didn't even talk about why we started it, but that's cool. We could talk about that on another episode. But
right.
yeah, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be fun. We die hard fans, obviously. Just want to bring a different perspective to what's already out there.
Yes, sir. And we out.